Good morning and welcome to the webinar Path to Passwordless. My name is Mark Walton and I'm a Solutions Architect at Ultima in the Modern Workspace team. The goal of this session is to hopefully provide you with a greater understanding of Passwordless and what the journey might look like to get there. We're going to take a look at the pain of passwords, industry protocols, the methods available as an alternative to passwords. We'll look at a scenario and a demo, what the path looks like and how you can stay up to date. I'll provide you with some takeaways and a to-do list, and there'll be a chance for Q&A at the end. This session will be recorded and made available afterwards along with the slides. There is no doubt that over time, people are going to rely less on passwords. This was a quote by Bill Gates made at the RSA Security Conference all the way back in February 2004. Over 15 years on, we continue to rely on passwords. But could we be approaching the stage for a world without them? The first computer password was developed back in 1961, and whilst passwords are ubiquitous and easy to understand, in today's world, there's problems with passwords. Every day we see reports of new breaches. 81% of hacking-related breaches use either stolen or weak passwords. Whether they are phishing, spraying, stuffing, brute forcing, key logging, or offline cracking, the only people that really like passwords are attackers. Password support and maintenance can be one of the biggest costs for IT departments. Gartner estimate that between 20 and 50% of help desk calls are for password resets. Each day, humans spend 1,300 years collectively entering passwords. Users grow tired of creating new passwords for different services, having to remember them, having to change passwords every few months due to security policies. Passwords can really be a hindrance to productivity. So, we need a solution that's more secure and provides a better user experience. What about MFA, I hear you ask? Well, if you're in the middle of rolling out MFA, then please carry on, please don't stop. With MFA, you can reduce the odds of being compromised by up to 99.9%. And we'll see later on how that can help you on your path to passwordless. But Microsoft recognizes that whilst MFA, in addition to password, does add security, many users get frustrated with that additional layer on top of having to remember their passwords. Users can suffer from prompt fatigue, and depending on the method, MFA can be susceptible to man-in-the-middle and phishing attacks. But what exactly is password authentication? Passwordless is simply any method of verifying the identity of a user that doesn't require them to provide a password. What are the benefits of passwordless? So from a personal experience, I can just imagine a weekend visiting family where I don't need to talk about password managers or have to reset their 1Password or LastPass master password. So along with that, we have improved user experience. So removing the need for a user to remember or type in passwords. Whether it's Face ID, fingerprint scan, or security keys, users no longer need to remember credentials. Imagine telling your end users that they no longer need to enter their username and password, and also there's the benefit of being dramatically more secure. With passwordless solutions offering authentication that cannot be cracked, breached, or phished, then this will lead to a reduction in breaches. And then we have the lower support costs when compared to the total cost of maintaining and managing passwords. So we've seen how using passwords isn't enough for the current cybersecurity threats. And these benefits, well, they sound great, but the Bill Gates quote at the start is from 2004. So why are we not already in a passwordless world? What's changed? Well, a number of things have changed. First, there's the changing cyber threat landscape. There's the technology. Devices typically come built with biometric features, and most users carry with them a biometric authenticator in their mobile device. There's the user expectations, so similarly to the changes we've seen in the modern workspace where users expect to be able to work from any device, users are used to using Face ID or fingerprint for their own devices and expect that experience within the workplace. And finally, there's the developments of industry standards for passwordless. Now, we can't get through a Microsoft security webinar without some acronyms. So, FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online, and the FIDO Alliance is a board. It's a board that was established around 6 years ago to develop and promote authentication standards that help reduce the over-reliance on passwords. FIDO 2 is an umbrella term for the combination of WebAuthn and CTAP. To break those down as well, so web authentication or WebAuthn, that's the client API, which uses public key cryptography instead of passwords for registering, authenticating, and second factor authentication for websites. CTAP, that's the authenticator API, and that enables FIDO2 capable devices to interface with the roaming authenticators over technologies such as Bluetooth, USB, or near-field communication, NFC. You may also come across on your passwordless journey the acronym U2F, and that's Universal Second Factor, and FIDO2 is a second generation of U2F. So acronyms over, let's have a look at the key features. So the key features are users can use their daily devices, the biometrics and keys remain on the device, and the protection against phishing, man-in-the-middle, and replay attacks. In this webinar, we're going to focus on Microsoft solutions, but there's plenty of other vendors out there with solutions too. So Microsoft offer a choice of standards-based passwordless authentication methods to help users keep their identities safe. The first one we have is Windows Hello for Business. Windows Hello for Business replaces passwords on Windows 10 devices. So replaces them with something you have, plus something you are or something you know. So for example, a Face ID or fingerprint, or a device-specific PIN that isn't transmitted over the network. What's the difference between Windows Hello and Hello for Business? Well, essentially it's added security. So the for business part means that it uses public or private key or certificate-based authentication. Great solution for Windows 10 laptops, but what about other devices? So you may already be using the Microsoft Authenticator app, and if you've already rolled it out, then that's great because it helps you get ready to go passwordless. If you have a Microsoft personal account, the functionality for passwordless sign-in with the Authenticator app has been available for a while, and if you're still using a password with your Microsoft personal account, then I definitely recommend getting this set up. So if you go to account.microsoft.com, security, set up identity verification app, you can set that up to there and see far less password prompts and sign in with your Authenticator app. Lastly, we have FIDO2 security keys. So FIDO2 security keys are small hardware devices that use public key cryptography for secure authentication. You may have one or you may have seen them. Think of them as looking like small, slim USB memory sticks. They come in all sorts of varieties, so USB-A, USB-C, NFC, Bluetooth, Lightning. Some have biometrics on them as well to connect with devices and mobile devices. We'll take a look at some examples shortly. So how does it work? So it's based on the WebAuthn standard that we briefly looked at earlier. So it provides that modern, secure, using private and public key based for passwordless authentication. The same public key cryptography architectural pattern is used for each of the methods. So each Hello for Business, authenticator app and the FIDO2 keys, there's always a second factor. So you have the device and either Face ID, fingerprint, or PIN. The keys are always stored in a secure element, and the private key is uniquely tied to that device. And to sign in, so Azure AD would perform the public and private key validation and return the access token. Okay, whenever I join a webinar or a technology presentation, what always grabs me is a story or an example. So I'm going to introduce a scenario. So move aside Contoso or Fabricam. The originally or unoriginally named Ultimark is today's example. Ultimark are a fictional e-marking and computer-based test solutions business. They have users based worldwide. They have Microsoft M365 E3 licenses and some E5 licenses as well. They use Office 365 as their productivity solution. They still have AD and servers and on-prem, and they have high-value intellectual property in the form of exam papers, answer sheets, and exam results. So what have they done so far? What does their identity solution look like at the moment? So they're using AAD Connect for synchronized identity, which I expect a lot of you have probably done yourselves. And they're using Azure AD as the identity provider for ServiceNow, Salesforce, and other apps. They've implemented conditional access, and with that, they're adopting a zero trust model, and they're blocking legacy authentication using conditional access. As part of their conditional access strategy, they're using Intune, and they've implemented hybrid Azure AD join. Self-service password reset is in place. MFA is required for non-corporate devices. They're also using PIM, so privileged identity management. So you may have joined a previous webinar where we looked at that, and that helps mitigate the risk of compromised admin roles. As part of that, they're also using access reviews to review those privileged roles, and they've got break glass accounts in place as well. And lastly, they've implemented password protection, which we also looked at a previous webinar, and that allows them to eliminate the easily guessed passwords and decrease the risk of password spray attacks. So the CEO at Ultimark has been asked to look at the feasibility of eliminating passwords, and as part of that, they are looking to start a POC. So let's take a look. So in order to turn on some of the passwordless features in public preview in Azure AD, there's a few things we need to do as prereqs. So I'm going to log into the Azure Portal. I'm going to try again because that timed out. There we go. So I just signed in as the Ultimark demo admin account into the Azure Portal with my security key. So let's have a look at what we need to do in order to enable that potentially either in your environments or what the steps that we followed for Ultimark. So the first thing we need to do is enable something called combined MFA and SSPR registration. So combined registration basically offers a lot better end user experience as it allows for users to register for MFA and self-service password reset in one set of steps. It's also a lot more modern looking. It also defaults to using the authenticator app as well rather than a phone call. So let's go into Azure AD. We go into user settings, and tucked away at the bottom within here is user feature previews. If I click on that, we can see this option here to enable the combined experience. You can turn this on just for a group, so either if you want to test this setting before rolling out, or you've got documentation or instructions that you need to update before rolling it out, then you can do selected and pick an Azure AD group. Ultimark have selected that for all. So that's step one. The second step that we want to do is enable the passwordless preview option. So if I then in Azure AD go down to security, within security under manage I have authentication methods. And I can see there's two methods which we discussed earlier. So the first one is the FIDO2 security keys. So I can click that. I've enabled it. So previously it was set to no, and I've enabled it there. And I'm targeting that to a specific pilot group. So I have a group in AD for the passwordless POP and users added into there. And similarly for the Microsoft Authenticator passwordless sign-in, I've enabled that and I've applied that to a group. So pretty straightforward in order to enable that and set that up. So let's welcome our first demo user. So our first demo user is Deborah Berger with the Authenticator app through the browser. I think someone's just said it sounds like Cluedo, but I promise you it's not. So Deborah with the browser. So I'm going to click on Deborah. You can see that I'm prompted with a code, and on my mobile device right now, I'm getting the message approve sign in with the number 40 as the option, and it does Face ID as well. And just to show you what that looks like from within the slide point of view, then within the app, I'm getting the prompt. I've just missed a slight prereq on that app. As part of the app, then the user would need to enroll the MFA app and enable the phone sign-in. So if you've already used the app within for MFA, you can go into the app, click enable phone sign-in, and then you get a little logo with a key and a device, and that will allow you to sign in using the device. Okay, so I'm logged in as Deborah Berger. What about a security key? So if I go to aka.ms my security info, and get prompted to sign out again. Within here, I can see the my sign-ins and the security info page. I'm going to set up a security key. So I click on add method, and the steps I showed earlier, that will enable you to see this option for the method. So under security key, I click on add. I choose the type of security key that I have, the USB device. Click next. Because this is the first time I've set up this security key and there's no biometrics on this key, I get prompted for a PIN. And then prompted to touch the security key. And that's then registered. I can use my security key to sign in. Those are just the screenshots of the previous sign-in, just showing the authenticator sign-in, showing me the prompt for the number on the screen and the Face ID. So moving on to the FIDO2 keys. So I've got 3 different keys on my desk. The one I just set up just then for Deborah is the security key by Yubikey. So this one on the left-hand side. This is the kind of basic security key that Yubikey offer. It's probably around £20 for that security key, but that supports FIDO2 and supports the Microsoft public preview Azure AD sign-in. The middle option, we've got the Yubikey 5 NFC. That comes with a few more features, comes with NFC and some additional crypto features on that key. It's about around £40 for that key. This one here is the EWBM Golden Gate G310, and this actually has a biometric fingerprint reader on there as well. So let's have a look at that one. So if I fire up a browser, I can see that in the Azure portal, I've got this option. If I go to portal.azure.com, we've signed in with security key at the bottom. I pop my security key into the USB slot, click sign in with security key, and because it's biometrics, I can just touch that USB key or try and touch it. If the biometrics doesn't work, it will fall back to a key. And I'm signed into the Azure portal. Using that passwordless sign-in is automatically flagged as strong authentication. So if you require MFA and conditional access, then that condition is met. So the browser sign-in, when it plays ball and the demo gods are smiling on me, it does work, I promise. But what about the client? So what about signing into a Windows 10 PC? So if I show you this, I've got a virtual machine here, which is on 1903 Windows 10, and it's joined to Azure AD, and I've enabled the security keys for sign-in in Windows Hello for Business in June. So if I take this VM, just make sure that the security key is connected to it. So I get the pop-up to touch my security key. And I can see I'm logged in as Nesta Wilp, and if I've given the VM some more resources, then hopefully that should sign in. Okay, so I'm signed into my Windows 10 desktop using the security key without a password. I can see that I've got my Windows 10 sign in. If I launch my apps that are configured with single sign-on, then I can see that ServiceNow, Salesforce, Office 365 all lets me in because I've got that Azure AD token at sign-in. This functionality to sign in with the security keys of Windows 10, it does only work for Azure AD joined devices at the moment, but very soon this will be supported with hybrid device join as well. So look at ServiceNow, logs in, and Salesforce as well. Within the Windows 10 client, if I go into settings, and wait for that momentarily to load, go to accounts, go into sign in options, you can see here I've got some options in terms of managing passwordless authentication. So obviously I signed in with a security key. So if I click on the security key, I can click on manage, And I've got some options around there in terms of managing the key, so being able to reset it, being able to add additional fingerprints and so on. For the Yubikeys, as we saw during that registration, so there's a zero setup, so there's no setup, there's no drivers. It's just when you set up a FIDO2 key, then you're prompted in order to set up a PIN. For the G310, the key with biometrics on, then it's just a case of using the software in order to enroll your fingerprint. The scanned fingerprint data is encrypted, so it's stored in the secure storage area and it can't leave the key even during registration or authentication. In terms of keys, then Yubikey, they have received a lot of requests for a biometric key and it's something they're strongly considering, but there's no official plans to release one at this time. I'll share a link a bit later on in terms of security keys and the options and out there, as there's a lot which you might want to consider. So back to the title of the webinar. What does the path look like? So let's start with Microsoft's path. So Microsoft have two promises for Passwordless. They have the user promise, and that user promise is that end users never have to deal with passwords in their day-to-day lives. And they have the security promise, so user credentials cannot be cracked, breached, or phished. So let's have a look at those 4 steps. So step 1, we've looked at those 3 core passwordless methods. Step 2 is about ensuring workflows to stop asking for passwords. So it's the scenario where a user knows that they have a password. So for example, the demo we just saw, that the password is available as a fallback and users know they have a password, but they never have to use it. Step 3 is where the user promise is delivered, so end users never have to deal with their passwords in day-to-day lives. And in step 4, passwords are removed from the directory, and that's where the security promise is achieved. So the end goal is to eliminate passwords, but we probably need to accept that it will take some time to get to that stage. Gartner predicts that by 2022, 90% of mid-sized enterprises will implement passwordless methods in more than 50% of use cases. So we've looked at Ultimark's journey so far to passwordless. We've looked at Microsoft's path, but what might your journey look like? So the path will vary for every organization, but let's discuss some areas to consider. To start off, in the first stage, we have the assessment. So what apps, services, and devices do you need to support? It would be nice if all your apps supported modern authentication and were integrated with Azure AD, providing single sign-on, but it's quite likely that that probably won't be the case. So it's time to discover those legacy apps and apps not integrated to Azure AD or your chosen identity provider, and where those potential barriers within your organization are that might prevent you adopting passwordless. Take a look at your personas and your identities. Have a look at your identity solution. Is your Azure AD, is it aligned to best practices? Are you leveraging your Microsoft licensing? Where are passwords currently causing you issues inside your organization? And also look at the outcome. So what are you looking to achieve? What benefits will you deliver across the organization? We've looked at where Microsoft's target, but what's your end goal? The second stage we have is planning. So planning around the scenarios where you want to leverage passwordless authentication. What methods do you need to support those scenarios? How will you phase out those discovered legacy workflows? Also, what about the onboarding process and how do your processes change? Are you going to use security keys? If so, which one? What happens if a user forgets or loses their key? And also consider the user change management. So ensuring that those executive stakeholders are engaged in the process, and you're planning those activities to support your users throughout the change. After that, it's all about delivering the plan. If you're looking for any assistance around identity security or want to discuss your path to passwordless in more detail, please get in touch through your account manager. So where can I go for some more info and help me stay up to date? So the first, for Windows Hello for Business, that link there will provide you with more info, including the prereqs for the different deployment types. For security keys, the FIDO2 keys, that's a link to a great thorough blog by someone called Paul Stamantio on getting started with security keys. Next week we have Ignite, so there's at least I'd say 5 or 6 dedicated sessions on passwordless next week. So look out for all the announcements. It's streamed live. And recordings will be available if you're not lucky enough to be attending. Twitter is a great resource for keeping up to date, and there's some suggestions of some accounts there with a passwordless focus, which you can follow if you're interested. And of course, a plug for Ultima webinars. So if there's any topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please let us know. Okay, so well, I will leave you with a to-do list. So a to-do list for your path to passwordless. So to start off with, an identity security review. So before starting on the path, just ensure your house is in order. So there's a lot of quick wins when it comes to Azure AD security. Maybe have a look at your secure score if you've not looked at it recently. Check those toggles in Azure AD. Enable the authenticator sign-in for your personal account. So if you've not done this already, there's a great way to understand the user experience before maybe looking at rolling it out across your organization. Enable the combined MFA and SSPR registration. So the benefits are the end user experience. There's also the ability to be able to restrict that in conditional access to trusted devices and trusted locations. So I really recommend that you take a look at that. There's the Azure AD Passwordless public preview, which we looked at briefly in the demo. So maybe try that with the Authenticator app, or perhaps purchase a security key to understand the process. Look out for the Microsoft Ignite news next week and start on your path to passwordless. Thank you for your time this morning. I hope it was useful. I'm happy to take any questions either now or offline. Thank you.